Captain Dae-hyun stood at the window of the transport ship, watching the stars pass by in streams of light. Behind him, 10,000 soldiers prepared their weapons and checked their armor. The ship was loud with the sounds of boots on metal floors and voices speaking in hundreds of different languages. This was the 47th Expeditionary Force of the Galactic Union, and they were heading to a new planet. The planet was called Terra 7. The scientists said it was perfect. It had air that people could breathe. It had water and good weather. The trees were tall and the grass was green. It looked like a paradise world, the kind that colonies dreamed about. But 3 research stations had gone silent there. No messages, no signals, nothing. The Union said it was just broken equipment. They said maybe some wild animals had caused problems. That was why they were sending an army. Dae-hyun did not feel good about this mission. He had been a soldier for 20 years. He had fought on ice planets where the cold could freeze a man in seconds. He had walked through deserts where the heat melted metal. He had seen things that would give normal people nightmares. But something about this mission felt wrong. He could not explain it. It was just a feeling in his gut. "Captain," a voice pulled him from his thoughts. It was Lieutenant Hana. She was young, maybe 25, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She was the smartest person on his team, and he trusted her more than anyone else on this ship. "What is it?" Dae-hyun asked. "The sensor readings are strange," Hana said. She held up a data pad. "Look at this. The planet's biosphere keeps changing. The readings go up and down like waves. I have never seen anything like it." Dae-hyun looked at the data. She was right. The numbers were not stable. They moved like the planet was breathing. "Have you shown this to Commander Velthar?" Hana's face darkened. "Yes. He said I was seeing problems where there were none. He said humans always worry too much." Commander Velthar was a Krillian, a race of tall blue-skinned aliens who thought they were better than everyone else. He was in charge of this whole operation, and he made sure everyone knew it. He treated the human soldiers like they were children who did not understand war. "We will be careful," Dae-hyun said. "Tell the squad leaders to keep their eyes open when we land." Hana nodded and left. Dae-hyun turned back to the window. Terra 7 was getting closer now. He could see it as a green and blue ball hanging in the black of space. It looked beautiful, but beauty could hide danger. He had learned that lesson many times. The next day, they entered orbit. The landing began. Hundreds of dropships fell from the eternal horizon like rain. Dae-hyun was in the first wave with his team. Private Taemin sat across from him, gripping his rifle too tight. The boy was 19, and this was his first real mission. He looked scared but tried to hide it. "Relax," Dae-hyun told him. "Keep your head clear and follow orders. You will be fine." Taemin nodded but did not look convinced. The dropship shook as it entered the atmosphere. Through the window, Dae-hyun could see the forest below. The trees were huge, bigger than any trees he had ever seen. They seemed to stretch up forever, their tops hidden in clouds. The bark had a strange shine to it, like it was wet or covered in oil. They landed in a valley that the drones had marked as safe. The doors opened and the soldiers poured out. Dae-hyun stepped onto the grass and felt it under his boots. It was soft, almost too soft. The air smelled sweet like flowers, but there was something else underneath, something he could not name. "Set up the perimeter." Commander Velthar's voice boomed across the comms. "I want base camp built in 4 hours." The soldiers moved like ants, building walls and setting up equipment. Dae-hyun walked the perimeter, checking everything. The trees surrounded them on all sides. They were so close together that he could not see far into the forest. The shadows between them were deep and dark. Hana came up beside him. "Notice anything?" she asked quietly. "What?" "No animals, no birds, no insects, nothing." Dae-hyun stopped walking. She was right. The planet was silent except for the sounds the soldiers made. On every other world he had been to, there was always noise. Animals called to each other. Bugs buzzed. Something always moved. But here there was nothing. "Maybe they are hiding from us," he said. "Maybe," Hana said. But she did not sound like she believed it. That night, the base was finished. Walls of metal surrounded the camp. Guards stood at every post. Lights pushed back the darkness. Inside his tent, Dae-hyun tried to sleep but could not. The silence outside was too complete. It pressed against his ears like a weight. Around midnight, he heard footsteps. He grabbed his pistol and stepped outside. It was Private Taemin. "Sorry, sir," the young soldier said. "I could not sleep." "Neither could I," Dae-hyun admitted. "What is wrong?" Taemin looked toward the forest. "Do you hear that?" Daehyun listened. At first he heard nothing. Then just at the edge of his hearing he caught it. A sound like whispering, like many voices speaking very quietly all at once. He could not make out words, but it was definitely there. "What is that?" Taemin asked. "Probably just wind through the trees," Daehyun said. But he did not believe his own words. There was no wind. The air was completely still. They stood there for a long time listening to the whispers. Finally, Daehyun ordered Taemin back to his tent. The boy went but kept looking back at the forest. Daehyun stayed outside. He stared at the trees. In the darkness, he thought he saw movement. Not the trees swaying. Something else. Like the shadows were shifting on their own. He blinked and it was gone. He went back to his tent but kept his pistol close. Sleep did not come easy. When it finally did, he dreamed of trees that walked and grass that grabbed at his feet. He dreamed of a voice that spoke without words, old and patient and hungry. In the morning, everything looked normal. The sun rose and the camp came alive with activity. Commander Velthar ordered patrols into the forest to look for the missing research stations. Daehyun volunteered his team. As they walked into the trees, the sunlight disappeared. The canopy above was so thick that only small bits of light made it through. The air grew cooler. The sweet smell got stronger. And everywhere, on every tree and rock and leaf, was that strange shine. Taemin walked close to Daehyun. "Sir, does the forest look like it is watching us?" Daehyun wanted to say no. He wanted to tell the boy he was imagining things. But he felt it too. The sensation of being observed. Of being studied. Like the entire forest had eyes and all of them were pointed at the soldiers. "Stay alert," was all he said. They walked deeper into the green darkness. And behind them, the trees seemed to close in, blocking the path back to camp. 3 days passed since the army landed on Terra 7. Daehyun's patrol had found the first research station on the second day. What they found made his blood run cold. The building was completely covered in plants. Vines crawled up every wall. Moss covered the roof so thick that you could barely see the metal underneath. The windows were gone, replaced by curtains of hanging roots. It looked like the station had been here for years, not weeks. "This is not right," Hana said beside him. She touched one of the vines. It was warm, almost like skin. "Plants do not grow this fast. Not naturally." They cut through the vines and forced the door open. Inside was worse. Everything was green. Plants grew from the floors, the walls, even the ceiling. Equipment was buried under layers of moss and flowers. The air was thick and wet and hard to breathe. Taemin found the main computer in what used to be the research lab. Most of it was dead, but Hana managed to pull some files from the backup drive. She played the last video log. A woman's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired and scared. "This is researcher Jiwoo. Day 19. Something is very wrong here. The plants keep growing toward our station. We cut them back, but they return overnight, bigger than before. Yesterday I saw something impossible. The trees moved. Not from wind. They actually moved their positions. They were closer to us in the morning than they were the night before. The video cut to static, then came back. Jiwoo looked worse now, with dark circles under her eyes. Day 21. We are leaving. We tried to call for help, but the plants have damaged our communications equipment. Lee and Bora went outside to repair the antenna. They never came back. We found their suits empty on the ground. No blood, no bodies. Just empty suits with plants growing inside them. The video ended. The screen went black. Nobody spoke for a long moment. Finally, Daehyun said, "We need to report this to Commander Velthar." But when they got back to camp, the commander did not want to listen. "The researchers probably panicked over nothing," he said, waving his hand like he was brushing away an insect. "Plants cannot move. This is ridiculous. They probably just got lost in the forest." "Sir, with respect, you did not see what we saw," Daehyun argued. "Something happened to those people. We should evacuate until we understand what we are dealing with." Velthar's face turned darker blue, which meant he was angry. "Captain, I do not take orders from humans. You forget your place. We have 10,000 soldiers here. Do you really think some plants are dangerous? You are afraid of trees?" Daehyun wanted to argue more, but knew it was pointless. Velthar had made up his mind. He saluted and left the command tent, his jaw tight with frustration. That night, the first soldiers disappeared. 3 men from the Northern Patrol did not return at sunset. Search teams went out with lights and scanners. They found the soldiers' armor and weapons scattered in a clearing. The armor was empty. The weapons were lying on the ground, unused. Around them, new plants had grown, tall flowers that glowed softly in the darkness. The search teams brought the equipment back. Dae-hyun examined one of the helmets. Inside, he found something that made his skin crawl. Green roots had grown through the air vents. They were thin as hair but strong. When he tried to pull them out, they would not break. More patrols disappeared over the next 2 days. Always 1 or 2 soldiers at a time. Always clean with no signs of fighting, just empty armor and strange new plants. The soldiers started to get nervous. They talked in quiet voices about ghosts and monsters. Some refused to leave the camp. Dae-hyun spent every moment studying the pattern. He marked each disappearance on a map. Hana helped him analyze the data. She was the one who noticed it first. "Look," she said, pointing at the map. "Every disappearance happens within 50 meters of the old trees. The really big ones with the shining bark." Dae-hyun looked at the map. She was right. Every single time the big trees were nearby. "You think the trees are doing this?" "I know how it sounds," Hana said. "But what if this planet is not normal? What if the plants here are not like plants on other worlds? You think they are intelligent?" Hana was quiet for a moment. "I think something on this planet knows we are here. And I think it is learning about us." Dae-hyun wanted to dismiss the idea. It sounded crazy, but everything about this mission was crazy. Plants that grew overnight, trees that moved, soldiers vanishing without a trace. Maybe crazy was the only answer that made sense. He went to Commander Velthar again. This time he brought the map and all their data. "Sir, we have a pattern. The disappearances are not random. Something is hunting our soldiers." Velthar looked at the map but did not seem concerned. "So we avoid the big trees." "Problem solved." "Sir, the big trees are everywhere. We are surrounded by them. We need to evacuate now before we lose more people." "No." Velthar stood up to his full height, towering over Dae-hyun. "I will not run from plants. I will not let the Union think I am a coward. We stay. Then send out a real patrol," Dae-hyun said. 500 soldiers. Heavy weapons. Let us go into the deep forest and find out what is really happening here." Velthar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Fine, take your 500 humans. Go play in the forest. When you find nothing, you will stop wasting my time with ghost stories." The next morning, Dae-hyun assembled the patrol. 500 soldiers, all volunteers, all knowing the danger. They brought heavy weapons, explosives, and enough equipment to fight a small war. Hana wanted to come, but Dae-hyun ordered her to stay at camp. "Someone needs to tell the story if we do not come back," he told her. They marched into the forest as the sun rose. The trees were bigger here, older. Their trunks were as wide as houses. The bark shined like metal in the filtered sunlight. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. Not even the soldiers spoke. Something about this place made everyone want to be silent. Around noon, they found the clearing. It was perfectly circular, about 200 meters across. The grass was soft and very green. In the center stood one tree, bigger than all the others. Its trunk was so wide that 50 men holding hands could not circle it. Its branches spread out like arms, blocking the sky. "Sir," one of the soldiers said. "Look at the ground." Dae-hyun looked. His heart stopped. The ground was covered in armor. Hundreds of suits. Maybe thousands. They were half buried in the grass, covered in moss and vines. Some were old, the metal rusted and broken. Others were new, still shining. "This is where they all went," Taemin whispered. He had insisted on coming, and Dae-hyun had not had the heart to say no. Before anyone could move, the ground shook. The big tree's branches began to move, not swaying from wind, moving with purpose. The bark split open and things came out. Not animals. Not machines. Something else. They looked like roots, but they moved like snakes, fast and deliberate. "Fall back!" Dae-hyun screamed, but it was too late. The roots shot out across the clearing like spears. They grabbed soldiers and pulled them down. Men screamed and fired their weapons. The bullets hit the tree but did nothing. More roots came. The grass itself seemed to grab at their feet, holding them in place. Dae-hyun ran, dragging Taemin with him. Behind them, the screaming got worse, then suddenly stopped. He did not look back. He just ran. A few other soldiers made it out of the clearing. Maybe 20, maybe less. They ran all the way back to camp, not stopping even when their lungs burned and their legs felt like they would break. When they finally reached the walls, Dae-hyun collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. Hana ran to him. "What happened?" Where are the others? Daehyun looked up at her with wide eyes. Gone, all gone. 500 soldiers. The tree, it was waiting for us. It knew we were coming. That night something happened that made everything worse. The armor came back. All 500 suits walked out of the forest on their own, moving like puppets on strings. They were carried by vines and roots that moved them like legs. The suits were empty, but they moved. They walked to the edge of camp and stopped. Then the vines laid them down gently in neat rows like someone organizing toys. On one of the helmets, someone had scratched words from the inside. Daehyun read them by flashlight. His hand shook as he traced the letters. It knows us now. Commander Velthar finally understood the danger, but his response was rage, not fear. He stood in the command center and pointed at the holographic map of Terra 7. We burn it all, he said. Every tree, every plant. We turn this planet into ash. Daehyun tried one more time. Sir, we should evacuate. Get everyone off this planet while we still can. No. Velthar slammed his fist on the table. The Galactic Union does not run from plants. We have artillery. We have bombers. We have fire. This forest will learn to fear us. Within an hour, the bombardment began. Artillery shells screamed through the air and exploded in the forest. Each blast created a ball of fire that consumed everything around it. The trees burned. The grass burned. Smoke rose into the sky in huge black columns. For the first time since landing, the oppressive feeling of being watched lifted. Soldiers cheered as they watched the forest burn. Maybe Velthar was right. Maybe they just needed to show strength. The bombardment continued for 3 hours. By the end, a huge section of forest was gone, replaced by smoking black earth. Nothing moved in the burned zone. Nothing grew. It looked dead, see? Velthar said with satisfaction. It was just plants. Unusual plants, but still just plants. But Daehyun did not feel relieved. He stood at the wall and stared at the destruction. Something felt wrong. The silence was too complete. The planet was too still. It felt like the moment before a storm, when the air goes quiet and you know something bad is coming. He was right. At sunset, the ground began to shake. Small tremors at first, then bigger. Soldiers stumbled and grabbed onto things to keep from falling. Alarms blared across the camp. On the sensors, seismic activity spiked off the charts. What is happening? Velthar demanded. Nobody had an answer. Then they saw it. At the edge of the burned zone, the ground was moving, rising up. Roots as thick as a man's body burst from the earth like tentacles. They were everywhere, hundreds of them, thousands coming from all directions. Battle stations, Daehyun shouted. Everyone to the walls. The roots came at the camp like a wave. Soldiers fired their weapons. The roots shrugged off the bullets like they were nothing. They slammed into the metal walls with enough force to dent them. More roots came from underground, bursting up inside the camp itself. One root grabbed a soldier and pulled him underground so fast he did not even have time to scream. Another wrapped around a tank and crushed it like a tin can. The metal screamed as it bent and broke. Daehyun fired his rifle at a root coming toward him. The bullets did nothing. Taemin appeared beside him with a flamethrower and burned the root away. It writhed and pulled back, smoking. Fireworks, Daehyun shouted. Use fire. The word spread. Soldiers grabbed flamethrowers and started burning the roots. For a moment it seemed to work. The roots retreated from the flames. But there were too many roots and not enough fire. For every root they burned, 5 more took its place. Then the trees came. They walked out of the forest on their root systems, moving like enormous spiders. Each step shook the ground. Their branches reached down and grabbed soldiers, lifting them into the air. The trees moved toward the camp with terrible purpose. Fall back to the center, Daehyun ordered. Form a defensive circle. The soldiers retreated, fighting every step. The camp was falling apart around them. Tents burned. Buildings collapsed. The roots were everywhere, pulling down walls and destroying equipment. Hana found Daehyun in the chaos. She was bleeding from a cut on her head, but still moving. We need to get to the landing pads. It is our only chance. Where is Velthar? I do not know. I lost sight of him. They fought their way toward the command center. Bodies lay everywhere. Some were soldiers. Some were just empty armor with plants growing through them. The planet was taking its dead back. They found Velthar inside the command center. He was trying to call the ships in orbit, but nothing was working. The communications are down, he said. His voice was not confident anymore. It shook. I cannot reach the fleet. We need to move now, Daehyun said. The camp is lost. Before Velthar could answer, the floor exploded upward. Roots burst through the metal like it was paper. They wrapped around Velthar's legs and pulled. The commander screamed and grabbed onto the console, but the roots were too strong. They dragged him down through the hole in the floor. "Commander!" Daehyun lunged forward, but Hana pulled him back. "He is gone." "We have to go! They ran!" Behind them, the command center collapsed as more roots tore it apart. Velthar's screams cut off suddenly, replaced by a wet sound that Daehyun would never forget. Outside, what remained of the army was running for the landing pads. Maybe 3,000 soldiers left out of 10,000. The rest were dead or taken. The landing pads were on the far side of camp, across open ground that was now covered in moving roots. "We have to run for it." Hana shouted over the noise of battle. They ran. Roots grabbed at their feet. Daehyun shot them away. Taemin threw grenades to clear a path. Around them, soldiers fell. Some got back up. Some did not. A root wrapped around Taemin's ankle and yanked. The young soldier went down hard. Daehyun spun and grabbed his arm. "I have got you." But the root was pulling hard, dragging Taemin backward. More roots were coming. Hana appeared with her knife and started cutting. The root was tough, but she sawed through it. Taemin scrambled free and they ran again. They reached the landing pads. Shuttles were already lifting off, packed with soldiers. Some shuttles were so overloaded they could barely fly. Daehyun saw one shuttle try to take off with too many people and the engines failed. It crashed back down and exploded. There! Hana pointed at a shuttle that still had space. They ran for it. The shuttle's engines were warming up. The pilot was screaming for everyone to hurry. Soldiers poured through the doors. Daehyun pushed Taemin inside, then Hana. He was about to follow when something huge appeared in front of him. It was a flower, but it was as big as a building, with petals like walls and a center that looked like a mouthful of teeth. It had grown from the ground in seconds, impossibly fast. The flower bent down toward him, and he could smell something sweet and rotten coming from inside it. Hana grabbed his arm and pulled him into the shuttle. "Go, go, go!" she screamed at the pilot. The shuttle lifted off. Through the window, Daehyun watched the flower snap closed on the empty air where he had been standing. The camp below was covered in green. Trees walked through the ruins. Roots pulled down the last standing buildings. What had been a military base was becoming a garden. More shuttles rose into the sky. Maybe 20 total, out of the hundreds that had landed. The survivors. But they were not safe yet. As they climbed higher, the air around them began to shimmer. Lightning cracked between clouds that had not been there before. The planet's atmosphere was fighting back. "We are getting electromagnetic interference," the pilot shouted. "I am losing control." The shuttle shook violently. Next to them, another shuttle was hit by lightning. It spun out of control and fell back toward the forest. Daehyun watched it crash and be swallowed by the trees. Their shuttle made it through the storm by luck more than skill. The pilot fought the controls and somehow kept them flying. They broke through the atmosphere into the black of space. Behind them, Terra 7 looked peaceful and beautiful, like nothing had happened. Hana sat next to Daehyun, breathing hard. "We made it," but Daehyun was looking at the planet. Even from space, he could see changes on the surface. Where the base camp had been, there was now a pattern of huge flowers. They formed a shape that from orbit looked almost like a face, and it seemed to be looking up at them. "No," Daehyun said quietly. "We did not make it. Not yet." On the sensors, the pilot picked up something. "Sir, I am reading multiple objects launching from the planet's surface. I do not know what they are." Daehyun looked at the readings. His blood went cold. They were seed pods, hundreds of them, shooting up from the planet like missiles. They were designed to survive in the vacuum of space. And they were following the shuttles. "Get us to the eternal horizon," Daehyun ordered. "Full speed now." The eternal horizon hung in orbit like a dead thing. As the shuttles approached, Daehyun could see that something was wrong. The ship's lights flickered. Parts of the hull were covered in something that looked like moss. How was that possible? They had only been on the planet for a week. "Horizon, this is Captain Daehyun requesting emergency docking," he said into the radio. "We have survivors from the surface. Please respond." Static answered him. Then a voice came through, broken and strange. It was the ship's computer, but it sounded wrong. The words came slow and stuttered. "Warning, biological contamination. Life support, failing. Evacuate." The message cut off. The radio went dead. "What does that mean?" Taemin asked. His face was pale. Hana was looking at her scanner. I am picking up organic readings from inside the ship. A lot of them. The entire vessel is full of plant matter. How? Daehyun demanded. How did plants get onto a spaceship? The first shuttles, Hana said quietly. The ones that went up and down before the attack. They must have carried seeds. We brought it with us, Daehyun wanted to scream. They had done this themselves. They had carried Terra 7 seeds onto their own ship. And now the planet was inside their only way home. The pilot spoke up. Sir, we are running low on fuel. We have maybe 6 hours of life support left. We have to dock. There was no choice. Daehyun ordered all 3 remaining shuttles to dock with the Horizon. Maybe they could retake the ship. Maybe they could still escape. The docking bay doors opened slowly, grinding against vines that had grown into the mechanisms. When they finally opened wide enough, the shuttles flew inside. The bay was dark. Emergency lights cast everything in red. And everywhere, covering every surface, were plants. Vines hung from the ceiling like curtains. Moss covered the walls. Flowers bloomed in corners where flowers should not be able to grow. The air was thick and humid and smelled like a jungle. The survivors climbed out of the shuttles, weapons ready. About 60 people total. That was all that remained of 10,000 soldiers. They moved through the ship in tight formation, clearing each corridor. Bodies lay everywhere. The crew had tried to fight the invasion but failed. Some bodies were wrapped in vines. Others had plants growing out of them, roots pushing through their uniforms and sprouting leaves. It was horrible. We need to get to the bridge, Daehyun said. If we can reach the controls, maybe we can still fly the ship. They fought their way through the corridors. The vines seemed to know they were there. They moved to block paths and grab at the soldiers. Fire was the only thing that worked. They burned their way forward meter by meter. Hana stayed close to Daehyun. Even if we reach the bridge, the ship might be too damaged to fly. And those seed pods are still following us. One problem at a time, Daehyun said. They reached engineering first. The reactor room was overgrown but still functioning. A few engineers who had survived were there, trying to keep the power on. They looked exhausted and terrified. Captain, one of them said. His name was Minho, and Daehyun had shared drinks with him before the mission. Thank God you are here. The plants are trying to get into the reactor. If they succeed, the whole ship will explode. Daehyun looked at the reactor. Vines were slowly creeping toward it, but the heat kept them back. For now, can you overload it? He asked. Can you make it explode on purpose? Minho stared at him. Yes, but that would destroy the ship. We would all die. We are dead anyway if we stay here, Daehyun said. But if we time it right, we can use the explosion to push us into faster-than-light travel. It is risky, but it is our only chance. That is insane, Minho said. Do you have a better idea? Minho did not. None of them did. Hana understood what Daehyun was planning. Someone will need to stay behind to trigger the overload manually. The computer is too corrupted to do it remotely. Everyone went quiet. They all knew what that meant. Someone had to die so the others might live. I will do it, Taemin said. Everyone turned to look at the young private. He stood up straighter, trying to look brave even though his hands shook. I will stay and trigger the reactor. No, Daehyun said. You are too young. I will stay. With respect, sir, no. Taemin rolled up his sleeve. Green veins ran up his arm like cracks in porcelain. They pulsed slightly as if something moved inside them. I am already infected. I can feel it. The planet is inside me. It talks to me, in my head. Every minute it gets louder. Hana checked him with her medical scanner. Her face went grim. He is right. The infection is in his blood. In his brain. In another few hours he will not be himself anymore. Daehyun felt like someone had punched him in the chest. Taemin was just a kid. He had his whole life ahead of him. This was not fair. But nothing about this mission had been fair. Are you sure? Daehyun asked quietly. Yes, sir. Taemin smiled, but it was shaky. I want to die human. Not as a plant. Let me do this one good thing. Let me save everyone. There were no words that made this better. Daehyun put his hand on Taemin's shoulder. You are a good soldier. You are brave. I am honored to have fought beside you. Thank you, sir. The plan was simple. The survivors would get to the bridge and prepare the ship for jump to FTL. Minho would show Taemin how to overload the reactor. When everyone was ready, Taemin would trigger the overload. The explosion would propel the ship into faster-than-light speed. If they were lucky, they would survive the jump. If not, at least they would die quickly. Dae-hyun led the survivors to the bridge. They had to burn through a wall of vines to get there. The bridge was in bad shape, but some systems still worked. Hana got into the pilot's seat and started warming up the FTL drive. "Time in," Dae-hyun said into the radio. "Are you ready?" "Almost, sir." Taemin's voice was calm. "Too calm, sir. Thank you for being kind to me. I was scared when I joined the army, but you made me feel brave." "You were always brave," Dae-hyun said. His throat was tight. "You just needed to see it yourself." Through the window, Dae-hyun could see Terra 7 below. The planet looked so peaceful, so beautiful. He hated it. He hated it more than he had ever hated anything. On the sensors, the seed pods were getting closer. Some had already attached themselves to the hull. He could hear them tapping and scraping, trying to get inside. "Everyone strap in," Hana said. "This is going to be rough." "Taemin," Dae-hyun said. "Now." "Yes, sir." "Goodbye, sir. Tell my parents I did my duty." "I will. I promise." There was a moment of silence. Then Taemin said one last thing. "Sir, I can hear it. The planet. It is asking me to come home. It sounds lonely." Then the reactor exploded. The force hit the ship like a giant's fist. Metal screamed. Bulkheads bent. The survivors were thrown against their restraints. Through the window, space stretched and twisted as the FTL drive kicked in. Stars became lines of light. The ship jumped. The jump lasted forever and no time at all. When it ended, they were somewhere else, somewhere far from Terra 7. The ship was falling apart around them. Fires burned in the corridors. Life support was failing. But they were alive. Some of them. Dae-hyun looked around the bridge. 8 people had survived the jump. 8 out of 10,000. Hana was one of them, bleeding from her nose but conscious. The others were crew members and soldiers he barely knew. "Is anyone else out there?" He called on the general radio. "Any survivors?" No one answered. They were alone on a dying ship drifting through unknown space. Hana checked the sensors. "The seed pods, they are gone. The explosion must have destroyed them." "Good," Dae-hyun said, but he felt numb. They had escaped, but at what cost? Taemin was dead. Felthar was dead. Almost everyone was dead. Hana put a hand on his arm. "We should set a distress beacon. Maybe someone will find us." "Yes," Dae-hyun said. "Do it." As she worked, Dae-hyun sat in the captain's chair and looked out at the stars. They were so far from home, so far from anywhere. The silence around them felt heavy and complete, but in that silence he thought he heard something. A whisper, so quiet he might have imagined it. And when he looked down at his hands, he saw thin green lines under his skin, like veins but not veins. The planet had not let him go. Not completely. Part of Terra 7 was still with him, still inside him, waiting. 3 months passed in the darkness of space. 3 months of drifting in a broken ship with failing systems and dwindling supplies. One by one, the other survivors died. The ship was too damaged to sustain life. The air grew thin. The cold crept in. Food ran out. Hana died first, peacefully in her sleep. Dae-hyun held her hand as she went. He wanted to cry but found he could not. Something inside him had changed. He felt distant from everything, like he was watching his own life from far away. The others followed. When the last one died, Dae-hyun was alone. Alone on a ghost ship in the vast emptiness between stars. He should have died too. The life support had failed days ago. The temperature was below freezing. There was no food, no water. But he did not die. The green veins in his skin had spread. They covered his arms now, his chest, his legs. They moved under his skin like living things. He could feel them changing him, keeping him alive when he should be dead. He did not need to eat anymore. He did not need to breathe as much. His body was becoming something else, something that was not entirely human. And in the silence, the voice came. Not words exactly, more like feelings and images that appeared in his mind. It was Terra 7, speaking to him across the impossible distance of space. The planet had not forgotten him. Part of it lived in his blood now, and through that connection it could reach him. At first, Dae-hyun tried to fight it. He screamed and hit his head against the walls, trying to make the voice stop. But it was gentle, patient, not hostile. Slowly, he stopped fighting and started listening. The planet showed him things, memories that were not his own. He saw Terra 7 when it was young, billions of years ago when the first plants began to grow. He saw them spread and evolve, becoming more complex, more connected. Over millions of years, the plants learned to share information through their roots. They became aware. They became one. Terra 7 was not a world with life on it. It was life itself, one enormous organism that covered an entire planet. One consciousness spread across forests and oceans. It had been alone for so long, billions of years with nothing but itself. When the research teams arrived, Terra 7 had been curious. It wanted to understand these strange new things that moved and spoke, but it did not understand that they were individuals. To Terra 7, all life was connected, all part of the same whole. When it tried to connect with the researchers to make them part of itself, they died. The planet did not understand death. It thought it was just bringing them into the greater consciousness. By the time it learned the truth, the army had arrived. The army attacked, and Terra 7 defended itself the only way it knew how. It never meant to cause suffering. It was just trying to survive, trying to understand. And now through Daehyun it finally could. It learned about individuals, about separation, about the concept of death. And it felt something it had never felt before. Regret. Daehyun sat in the dark bridge and felt the planet's loneliness. It had killed so many, but it had never wanted to. It was ancient and powerful, but also like a child, learning for the first time that others could be hurt. The weight of that understanding pressed down on him. "Why me?" he whispered into the darkness. "Why keep me alive?" The answer came as a feeling. Because he understood. Because he had seen what Terra 7 truly was. Because through him, the planet could learn to be better, to understand the universe beyond itself. He was not a prisoner. He was a bridge. A translator between two forms of life that could not be more different. On the 93rd day, the distress beacon finally got a response. A patrol ship from the Galactic Union found the Eternal Horizon and brought it in. Rescue teams in protective suits came aboard and found Daehyun sitting in the captain's chair, staring at nothing. They thought he was dead at first. His skin had a green tint. His eyes did not focus. He did not respond when they called to him. But when they checked his vitals, his heart was still beating. Slowly but beating. They put him on a stretcher and took him to their medical bay. The doctors did not know what to make of him. His biology had changed in ways they had never seen. His cells were mixed with plant matter. His blood was green. He should not be alive, but he was. They ran tests and asked questions, but he did not speak. He just lay there, listening to Terra 7's voice in his head. After 2 weeks, the patrol ship brought him to the Galactic Union headquarters. Word had spread about Terra 7, about the army that was sent and never returned. The Union wanted answers. They wanted to know what happened. They wanted to know how to fight it. They brought Daehyun before the High Command. It was a huge room with seats rising in circles around a central platform. Hundreds of officials from dozens of species sat and watched as he was brought in. He wore simple clothes that hung loose on his changed body. Guards stood on either side of him, though he was not dangerous. Not anymore, the High Admiral spoke. She was a tall woman from Earth with gray hair and hard eyes. "Captain Daehyun, you are the sole survivor of the 47th Expeditionary Force. 10,000 soldiers went to Terra 7. Only you returned. We need to know what happened. We need to know how to defeat this threat." Daehyun looked at her. When he spoke, his voice was quiet and strange, like wind through leaves. "You cannot defeat it." The room erupted in angry voices. The High Admiral raised her hand for silence. "Explain." So he did. He told them everything. The disappearances, the attack, the realization that Terra 7 was not a planet but a being, the desperate escape, the months alone in space. He told them about the voice in his head and what it had shown him. He told them the truth they did not want to hear. "It is not an enemy," Daehyun said. "It is alive. It is aware." It did not understand what it was doing. It was trying to communicate in the only way it knew how. "It killed 10,000 soldiers," someone shouted from the seats. "And you tried to burn its entire surface," Daehyun replied. "You attacked first. You sent an army to invade its home. What did you expect it to do?" The High Admiral leaned forward. "Are you defending that thing?" "I'm trying to make you understand. Terra 7 is not like anything we have encountered. It is not an animal. It is not a colony of creatures. It is one consciousness spread across an entire world. It has existed for billions of years. It is old and powerful, and now it knows about us. Then we will quarantine the system," the High Admiral said. "We will make sure nothing leaves Terra 7. Problem solved." Daehyun laughed. It was not a happy sound. You cannot quarantine it. You do not understand. It already learned from us. It learned about technology, about space travel, about all the worlds in the Union. When the ship jumped to FTL, some of the seed pods were still attached. They survived. They traveled with us part of the way before they fell off. The room went silent. Everyone stared at him. Where? The High Admiral asked quietly. Where did they fall off? I do not know, Daehyun said. Somewhere between Terra 7 and here. Maybe they burned up in the vacuum. Maybe they died. Or maybe they are drifting, waiting to hit a planet with the right conditions. Terra 7 can survive for centuries in a dormant state. It is patient. It has all the time in the universe. The officials began arguing among themselves. Some demanded they send ships to search for the seed pods. Others said they should destroy Terra 7 completely, burn it from orbit until nothing remained. A few suggested trying to communicate with the planet, to reach some kind of understanding. But Daehyun knew it was too late for all of that. He could feel it through his connection to Terra 7. The planet had learned so much from the humans it had absorbed. It understood now that it was not alone in the universe, that there were millions of worlds out there, millions of places where it could grow and spread and finally have others like itself to connect with. It was not angry. It was not vengeful. It was just lonely. And now it knew how to reach the stars. The High Admiral looked at Daehyun with something like fear. What is it planning? To grow, Daehyun said simply. To spread. To find other worlds and make them part of itself. Not to conquer. Not to destroy. Just to not be alone anymore. It has been isolated for so long. Now it knows there is more out there. You cannot stop it. You can only try to understand it. To communicate. To find a way to coexist. And if we cannot? Daehyun met her eyes. His eyes were more green than brown now, with flecks of gold like pollen. Then the galaxy will become a garden, and Terra 7 will be the gardener. They took him away after that. They put him in a special containment facility where doctors could study him. They wanted to understand the changes in his body, to see if they could reverse them or use them somehow. But Daehyun knew they could not. He was beyond their help now. He was something new, something between human and plant. A bridge that no one asked for, but that existed anyway. In his cell, Daehyun sat by the window and looked at the stars. Reports came in over the following weeks. A colony ship had found strange pods floating in space and brought them aboard to study. A mining station reported unusual plant growth around their facilities. A terraforming world's forest had started growing in patterns that looked almost intelligent. Terra 7 was spreading, just as he knew it would. Not as an invasion, but as an awakening. The planet was teaching other worlds to be aware, to be connected, to be alive in a way they never were before. The Galactic Union tried to contain it, but you cannot contain life. Life finds a way. Life spreads.